Any moment, President Trump will posthumously award Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the highest civilian award. As you know, the Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk was assassinated while addressing a crowd at Utah Valley University. President Trump will present the medal to Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk. This medal ceremony, I should note, is taking place on what would have been Charlie Kirk's 32nd birthday. We are monitoring that event and will take you there as soon as it begins. Also coming up, an alarming scene in Gaza. As you know, Hamas is evil. And just hours after the Gaza peace plan was signed and Israel started pulling back its troops, Hamas carried out mass public executions in the streets of Gaza with crowds cheering. We're going to have more on those public executions in Hamas. But first, does he sleep? I'm talking about President Trump. It's been a wild week for him, and it's only Tuesday. This morning at 2:30 a.m. Eastern, President Trump arrived home in the United States after securing a historic peace deal in the Middle East. And today, he has welcomed the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, to the White House. During that visit, President Milei presented President Trump with a letter thanking him for his work to achieve peace in the Middle East. The president of Argentina is not the only one congratulating President Trump. So is former President Joe Biden. Biden took to X to write in part, quote, "The road to this deal was not easy. My administration worked relentlessly to bring hostages home, get relief to Palestinian civilians, and end the war. I commend President Trump and his team for their work to get a renewed ceasefire deal over the finish line," end quote. President Trump will also be featured on Time Magazine's November cover. But President Trump is not pleased with the cover photo Time Magazine is using. How do I know he's not pleased? President Trump said so. Here's what President Trump posted in part on Truth Social, quote, "Time Magazine wrote a relatively good story about me, but the picture may be the worst of all time. They disappeared my hair and then had something floating on top of my head that looked like a floating crown, but an extremely small one, really weird," end quote. Former Special Assistant to President Biden and former Press Secretary to the First Lady, Michael LaRosa, joins me. Michael, I didn't think that picture was so bad on Time Magazine.
Not at all, and it's the cover of Time Magazine. At least he's getting the cover. Jill Biden turned it down, my former boss, and I have no idea why.
Why did he turn it down?
Against my better judgment.
Why did he turn it down?
The First Lady turned it down.
Oh, for him?
No, for her.
Oh, she had, okay.
But the same thing. It's like, why would you ever turn down a cover, a Time Magazine cover? So I thought the president looks great and well-deserved, by the way.
Yeah, well-deserved, but he's sort of looking, he's looking up, and I don't know, he doesn't like, of course, I don't like any pictures of me. So
but he cares very much about image and presentation, and he has a producer's eye. Yeah. And so he's always going to be critical of presentation.
Are you surprised more Democrats? President Biden and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have come out giving the president praise, but it has not exactly been, you know, a race to the microphone for Democrats to give him praise.
No, it hasn't. He deserves praise. I mean, he cut a deal in 9 months. President Biden, our team, we were there for 15 months, I think, during this, and it's probably a bitter pill to swallow in a way for President Biden and some of the people around him. He thinks of himself as a global statesman, a diplomat, somebody who had we packaged him as somebody who had the experience. He was negotiating with the Russians in his 30s, for Christ's sake, you know? He talked about and packaged himself as having the experience to cut deals with world leaders and his familiarity, his relationships with them. And he was ideologically a Zionist most of his career. But, you know, during the war, there is this tension in the Democratic Party, which has become very critical of the state of Israel. And I think there was a lot of pressure on Biden from the left.
Well, he was when he was in the Senate, he was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
That's right.
So he did have that. But was it, I mean, you talked about what he did in his 30s. You know, there's a lot of question about, you know, his mental acuity. Was it that, or was it the pressure from the Democrats, or was it he's trying to make everybody happy, like trying to make the Palestinians happy, trying to make Israel happy, and in the end?
I don't know. That's what sort of confuses me, because, you know, he talked about all the time how he became a Zionist because his father, you know, talked to him about the Holocaust at a very young age and his commitment to Israel as a senator, as vice president. And, you know, his relationship with Bibi outdates, you know, longer than I've been alive. When Bibi was a staffer here in D.C. at the embassy and Biden was a senator. So one would think he would have been able to get a deal if there was anybody who could. At the same time, I don't think it was the age or the focus. I think it was balancing a vice president who was running for president, and a very critical left, hard left, running to the left, as President Biden did on crime, as he did on immigration, and then as we saw in Israel. And I think he could have been tougher and more loyal in sticking by Israel in some of these things. Now, we should preface all of this by saying 80% of the deal shares the same DNA as the Biden ceasefire plan that broke down. 80%.
Yeah, but he couldn't get it over the finish
That's
line.
right.
It's like, the only thing that's close only matters in horseshoes.
I agree. I'm a former college athlete. When you win, you win. When you lose, you lose. When you don't get a deal, you don't get a deal. They have bragging rights. What
was you mentioned a thing about the pressure from the Democratic Party. I always thought, as president, you sort of ignore what the party was, but I guess not. But we even hear the things about Senator Schumer and how he's getting pressure from the left about this shutdown, and that he cares what somebody in the House, Congresswoman AOC, says in the House. I'm thinking he's a minority leader in the Senate. What does he care?
I have no idea. I mean, there's a rumor that she could be running for the Senate and challenging him. But first of all, nobody even knows if Schumer is going to run for re-election in 2028 anyway. He's also the best fundraiser the Democratic Party has ever had. So I don't know. I don't really think he's calculating that. But there is risk at the grassroots level only because there is this tension between the moderate Democrats. But look, if I'm Schumer, if I'm Hakeem Jeffries, I want to be on the side of Israel. Moderates make majorities, not the left. The left loses elections all the time.
All right, Matt Schlapp is here. Peter,
Yes.
If I were the nuns, he'd be in so much trouble for showing up late.
I know,
He has
right?
finally showed up, and ruined our good discussion by showing up.
You want to hit my knuckles with a ruler?
The nuns really hit you.
Yeah.
I've been hit by the nuns. I'm afraid of them.
But actually, you did some wrong things, too.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, but a lot of things I got away with it. Matt, we were talking. Michael and I were talking about. For some reason, I'm fixating on this. President Trump doesn't like that Time magazine cover, and I think it's a fine cover.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Look, I think he's been on the cover of Time magazine a lot of times, so maybe you get choosy when you've been on it so many times. The thing is this, which is the world has changed so much. I mean, I think Michael would agree. It's like media has changed. Time magazine doesn't matter. It used to matter. It's like so silly now.
We were talking about that too.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
Jill Biden turned down cover of Time magazine.
Is that true?
And I don't, against my better judgment, but
Yeah.
I would think you.
Melania can't get on the cover of a magazine. Jill Biden got to say no to covers of magazines because she was on so many.
It baffles me to this day.
And then you have all these leaders from across the world standing behind the American president as he makes this amazing announcement. To me, that picture alone shows you how things have totally changed. Don't take this too personally, but the world,
yes, he points to you.
the world was hungering and thirsting for America to find her moral voice again and to be actively involved in solving these problems. And they are just rushing to Trump because he is one of the most active presidents we've seen.
I don't disagree with that. Most of that.
As you point at him.
Right. I don't disagree with most of that. I think that Democrats fight and still haven't learned for themselves that strong and wrong always beats weak and right, and we have a perception, a problem of weakness, and that Trump, whether you agree or disagree, he shows activity. He runs towards action. I agree with that, but it is kind of ironic because this is a president who ran against the war in Ukraine. These were Biden wars against getting involved in wars. And we're going to have a substantial amount of involvement according to this plan. That's
well,
left
the
there.
interesting thing about the plan, it does. I think it's a huge win for Israel in a number of ways. Prime Minister Netanyahu just wanted the hostages to come home, and then after that, I think he's prepared to move in and take every Hamas person left there. He's got his hostages back, minus the ones who are dead. He doesn't have the remains. But now, no matter what happens, Hamas is toast. Right?
Yeah, I completely agree. No, I do think this is a victory for Israel. Remember, this was an unprovoked attack on October 7th. Hamas wanted to humiliate Israel and Netanyahu personally, and I think they felt like they obviously scored a big win for the side of evil, in my opinion. And so Netanyahu got back up. He was politically almost dead after this hit. He's gotten back up. He's shown leadership. He's shown a strong working relationship with President Trump. The hostages are out. Hamas looks weak. And I think the whole world realizes you can't have a two-state solution if the country on Israel's border is run by Hamas and believes that Israel should be wiped from the face of the earth. It'll just mean that all these countries will be forced to deal with this all over again a few years in the future. So that Two-state solution is dead.
I'm curious what happens to Prime Minister Netanyahu. He looks great on the world stage, but some of the people back home aren't so wild. And he's got that criminal trial that's been lingering for 6 years, which the way they do it is pretty nutty in my mind.
For what? Do you know what he did wrong?
Champagne and cigars.
Cigars and champagne. He's going to go to prison for that? Seems a little crazy to me.
Sorry. We're going to take a quick break. Michael LaRosa, Matt Schlapp, don't you dare go away. We're still waiting around for any moment because President Trump is going to posthumously award Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom. We're going to take you inside when it begins. In the meantime, we are going to take that short break.
From the moment Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, Newsmax was there.
We have some major breaking news. Israel launches strikes, preemptive strikes, almost 4 in the morning.
Israel has decided enough's enough.
What happened tonight was inevitable.
Something just caught my attention it sounds like afterburners overhead.
Multiple explosions across the capital, Tehran.
I'm in a shelter now. There's 6 of us.
Benjamin Netanyahu has come out to make a statement.
Our fight is not with you. Our fight is with the brutal dictatorship. We have risen like lions to defend ourselves.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Whenever the biggest news breaks, Newsmax is there for you because we're real news for real people.
There's a war raging in our society. It's not a battle over politics, race, or the sexual revolution. It's a battle for truth.
What we believe about the Bible is based on what we believe about its source.
The God Who Speaks is an award-winning documentary that uncovers the evidence for the Bible's authority. Discover the truth today. Visit thegodwhospeaks.org.
At Balsam Hill, we're crafting joy early this year. For a limited time during Balsam Hill Days, save up to 40% off plus free shipping on our beautifully designed lifelike Christmas trees, now made with more sustainable materials. Find your holiday spirit at balsamhill.com.
How does the world's most trusted dog expert keep his own dogs so healthy?
Hi, I am Cesar Milan. In my 20 years rehabilitating dogs, I've seen too many struggle with health problems that no amount of training could fix. Then I discovered it wasn't the dog, it was their food. Fortunately, I found veterinarian Dr. Marty's Anti-Kibble Breakthrough.
Nature's Blend is packed with whole foods that are freeze-dried, locking in nutrients.
I saw remarkable improvements in my dogs within weeks.
Try Dr. Marty risk-free for 90 days. Plus, get a free gift when you call or visit drmartypets.com/Caesar.
Well, you are looking at the outside of the White House. Everyone's getting ready for this. It's a rose garden. You can see it's been repaved. There aren't any roses anymore. It used to be the rose garden. President Trump has redone it, but I assume that they're waiting to get inside because the president's going to award Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and his wife Erica, who spectacular woman, I think, is going to be receiving it. Matt, I still can't get over Erica Kirk at the memorial saying that she forgives the guy, because I thought to myself, boy, you're a lot bigger, better person than Greta Van Susteren, because I admire her because
I agree.
She did stuff that I couldn't do.
First of all, it's still a rose garden. It's just it doesn't have grass. But all the rose bushes are still there. It just doesn't have grass.
It doesn't have grass?
The grass. The grass is now a hardtop because women couldn't walk on it with their high heels.
My office in the East Wing is going to be bulldozed.
So,
it won't be there
It does look like a skating rink, though.
Well, that's a different question.
Yes.
So to answer the question, I agree with you. You know, Pope John Paul famously met with the person who tried to kill him and forgave him. And I always thought there was a picture of that
after a couple of years, though. Wasn't it a couple years later?
It was, because the guy was violent too. So this person's gone, but I do think it takes real character to find that compassion inside you to do that. It shows you that she's a person of faith, and she made that very clear in all of her public remarks. And I think it's been a rallying cry. You know, there's a lot of people who actually know Charlie Kirk better now that he's not with us anymore than they did while he was alive. And the lessons they're learning from this are that, you know, if you're a young man get about your life, don't put it all off. And I think there was this lesson to young guys: you can kind of do whatever you want and cat around because you got your whole life to make serious decisions. And Charlie's message was, no, let's get about this now. And as a young man, he did amazing things.
Well, but it's interesting, Michael. It's like, she said she forgave him, right? And then Trump got up to speak. President Trump got up and said he hated him or something. I thought, well, I actually feel more like Trump. That resonated. I mean, that was, I thought, I wish I were like this woman, but I think more like this guy.
Yeah, I also thought it was a pretty authentic moment of Trump, who never shies away from being himself. I think it's expected, and I think he probably believes that. He's just not like, it wouldn't be him, right? It wouldn't be him to forgive.
Yeah.
I'll say this about him, that one of the things that I like the most about him is the authenticity, which is when you have these moments to talk to him.
Trump, not
privately.
Kirk.
You
Trump,
and I have talked to him when cameras aren't on, and I've talked to him. Mercy and I have talked to him privately. She's talked to him. Obviously, she worked for him. But there really isn't a big difference between that guy and the guy you see giving an address. He talks in the same way. Like, maybe he'll be even a little bit more colorful if you're having a private conversation. But he's not BSing the American people as to who he is. They're really seeing who he is, and
it's
these
funny you
leaders
say
are
that,
seeing it
because
too.
I spent a lot of time as a reporter following Secretary of State Hillary Clinton around the world. And then she got out on the trail running for president in 2016. It's like a completely different person, because in private, she was hardworking, charming, and everything else. And she got on the campaign trail, and she's like, listen to consultants. I thought, who is that?
That's how I got my start, as an intern with Friends of Hillary, in her finance office and her fundraising office in New York, as a senator 20 years ago. And I didn't drink the Hillary Kool-Aid by that point, but I did after I left, because she was so warm and charming and as charismatic as her husband in private.
In private, yeah.
But something changes, and with Hillary, I think it's more complicated, more like Nixon. They don't feel like they should have to play the game. And with Trump, he doesn't have to. He's been a producer. He's been on the other side. It comes naturally to him, but he has taken us inside the presidency and the White House every step of the way, and I give him a ton of credit for the transparency, or at least the accessibility.
Well, even today with the president of Argentina, I said, the American people get to see what's going on in the White House, and there are no secrets.
And I will say one thing, that with these world leaders in a lot of these countries, we have CPAC events, and I've gotten to know some of these leaders. They're emulating many of the things that you're talking about with President Trump. First of all, there's some eccentric hairdos, okay? There just are. Second of all, there's a lot of outsiders who, instead of pretending to be an insider, they're proud of the fact that they're an outsider in the process. The next piece is they're using social media in new and inventive ways, and they're bypassing. I went to campaign for the guy who ran for the presidency in Romania. He purposely didn't do any interviews with the mainstream media, and he would call them out, their media. And it was interesting. It was very Trumpian in the approach. And a lot of these guys, it's not 100%, but there's a lot of new leaders who have taken a Trump approach to getting to that office.
And if I had ever suggested on Air Force One that we let the press, for an off the record, let alone on the record, with reporters and cameras into the cabin, I think I would have been either transferred or fired on the spot. It was almost like the Biden people around the Bidens considered those spaces like so revered and off limits and private. It was their private space.
But
and he just lets everybody in.
The Oval Office too. I mean, the Oval Office is now used as almost like the gaggle room, whereas before it was a very special moment when like a world leader was there or something. And it's just, he's rewritten the rules.
Yes, he has, and it's an incredible lesson in accessibility.
Can I tell you something I've never said publicly, but one of the things that was great.
It's just between the three of us. Don't worry.
Well, I was late, so I have to make up. But when he first got to the White House the first time, I always said that I thought it was the first time he really was in the Oval Office. Now, I don't think we've ever had a president since Washington who hadn't been in the Oval Office before they were president. So that's kind of interesting. The second thing is that his comment upon walking around the whole White House and seeing the whole thing was like, hey, we're going to be able to use a lot of these rooms. And he really has. He has rethought about how you show the White House. And really, the American people had a very one-dimensional view of the White House, and they own that house. It's their house, and now they've gotten to see, like you said, back corridors, rooms they didn't get to see, all parts of Air Force
cabins,
One.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
The only thing they haven't seen a lot of is Camp David, because that's not kind of where the president likes to go and relax.
Great
but
place.
they've seen Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster and all these other places. So it's been like it almost is a version of a reality TV show taking place within the presidency.
See, I don't think. I mean, when I think of reality TV show, I sort of think like
like scummy
that's
stuff.
It's not a compliment. Whereas
I think it's a compliment.
I want to compliment the president for being so transparent and making it so that the American people know this.
But
place.
the people, there's all kinds of reality TV, but the idea that there's almost like a camera on in the White House during the working hours.
Yes, I've admired that.
Is an amazing thing, because the other thing is that I get tired and I make mistakes, even with my job. Can't imagine. He doesn't make a lot of, first of all, I don't believe he gets tired. Second of all, he doesn't make a lot of errors. Now, in the first term, people said, I can't believe he said this or said that. But after 10 years of Trump, they're used to the way he talks and says things. You don't have many stories of like, oh my God, clutching pearls, that he said a swear word, or clutching pearls that he kind of mocked the British,
What you know he used to do during
PM.
Yeah. You know what he used to do during the campaign is Reverend Franklin Graham wrote him a note asking if he'd clean up his language a little bit.
Well, he said it a little different from that, didn't he?
I don't know what he said, but anyway, so anyway, Trump would get on a campaign trail, and when things got a little salty and he'd say some things, he'd bring out the fact that Franklin Graham's going to be mad at him because he'd written a letter, to try to clean up his language.
I talked to him about his language too, but I told him I wasn't the right person to tell him that, because I sometimes don't use good language too. So like I was the wrong. Franklin Graham is a better person to guide him.
It didn't work.
But what he does that my party is having a major problem with, that we struggle with, is that he treats the media, all of the media, legacy, new media, broadcast, cable, he treats it like an opportunity. He'll go anywhere. He'll talk to anyone. Yeah. My party doesn't do that. They think we treat the press, instead of an opportunity, we treat it like a hazard.
Well, some people think that the Republicans think that the much in the media is like part of the Democratic Party. So
I know, and it's so strange. And coming from the Biden world, I can tell you these people were extremely hostile to every aspect of the media that they couldn't control themselves. There's a reason why Biden always did Lawrence O'Donnell and Rachel Maddow or those kinds of places.
But there's the Vice President, J.D. Vance, speaking to, looks like, our Secretary of State, does it not? And is that Sergio, too? Sergio, the new ambassador to India, who's also a friend. We're bringing it up. Who else do you see? This feels like...
Hard for me to see with my eyes.
This is going to be done in the East Room, obviously.
Obviously, there's Don Jr.
Don Jr., yeah. He was very close to Charlie Kirk. And so was Vice President Vance. I don't recognize anybody else.
Who's in white?
I assume a lot of family and friends in the first rows there.
We're going to be here. What happens to Turning Point? Matt, you're probably the expert.
It's a juggernaut. You know, the NRA was a juggernaut in conservative politics for a very long time, and through lawfare and other things, they've ebbed. I'd say the group that has the most momentum and has really raised a ton of money, made a big impact, is Turning Point. And I think they have a great trajectory, and I don't see this changing that.
Is there a Democratic youth movement of any sort?
There are, but they're not as robust, I guess I would say, or they don't have the amount of media infrastructure and command of media infrastructure that Turning Point does. I would say.
I'd say that the youth movement at the Biden White House ran the auto pen, but I'm
going to let him go because he got here. I'm going to let him go because he got here late.
But
that's a whole other story. We have 20 minutes.
I think that the left thinks they own young people, right? They think they own women. They think they own black voters. And so one of the reasons why Charlie was so successful is he was pushing back on the assumption that young people would automatically be left in their political views. And so that made the story super interesting. And then he did a great job raising money. And then they used technology and they used social media to get to these voters. And then you had this other dynamic, which had nothing to do really with Charlie or Turning Point, just young men feeling like they won't be able to get into the college of their choice, even if they have the grades, or they won't be able to get the job that they want because they have the wrong skin color or whatever, or the wrong gender. gender. And that was this DEI, BLM mindset.
I totally agree.
Created a big opportunity
that was
for
crazy.
us.
I had a friend whose son was graduated math from Penn at Wharton and with all these extra honors and everything, and he couldn't get an interview with any of these corporations or anything because he'd fill out the application. I mean, he had spectacular grades.
Well, when I got to first of all, I was just excited to be at the White House when I first got there. But when people were applying for jobs through personnel and things like that, there were so many eminently qualified people for the jobs that they were going for, and even getting.
That's actually sort of discrimination.
Interviews.
It is.
Who? What?
Discrimination when it's
on
like,
race, on gender, on race.
Well, these people were so qualified that the secretary would love them, the chief of staff of the secretary would love them, but they'd come back to the White House and the White House personnel office would tell the agency, no, this is reserved for X, Y, and Z.
Can I tell on Republicans? Republicans actually did this too, where they felt so defensive on questions of race, sexuality, gender, that they bent over backwards to try to make it seem like they were more diverse than maybe their actually supporters were. And I think that was a mistake too. I think that was well intended to try to say, hey, you're welcome in our movement, you're welcome in our party. But I remember having conversations with President Trump early before he was the president, and I'd say, hey, this would be a great person. He'd say, why? I'd say, well, I'd use the Republican logic. Oh, she's a woman and Hispanic, and then he chastised me. He was like, how about we just get the best people? I was like, oh my gosh, it's one of these Trump lessons. It's like, he's completely right. Because some of President Bush's worst picks that I was involved with were picked at the end because they checked a box of diversity instead of that extra little bit of talent or experience. And when you have these White House and administration jobs, your race, your gender, your sexuality does not help you when you're trying to manage a crisis that's incredibly serious. And I think all of us have fallen victim to this idea that the diversity is your strength. No, our strength is when we love our country and we reward people who have achieved things. Now, if there's any discrimination, we ought to be able to block it out. But in the guise of trying to get rid of discrimination, we hurt the lives of a lot of people.
Well, yeah, I think there's a problem when it comes to answering discrimination with more discrimination. And I think that's what the Democratic Party and DEI started to take to a level that has really hurt us. We're going to start losing, we already are losing a good percentage of suburban women, but we're about to start losing moms too. Moms who send
moms
their sons,
of sons, yeah.
Moms who send their sons to school and invest in their futures, and they're getting sent to the back of the line. A candidate, sorry if we have time, a candidate called me was raising money running for a state office, and I said, the first question you're going to get asked at a debate is, what's your answer on merit-based hiring? Or it's going to be one of the questions. Are you for merit-based or DEI? And then she gave this lawyerly response on the phone with me. I said, look, that's just not how your reporters want to make news, the moderators. It's also a BS detector. People are going to know if you can just say, yes, I am for merit-based hiring. That's all. And then you can go into your caveats. But Democrats are scared of the other Democrats.
I don't know how the Democratic Party sort of wheels its way back.
Well, the Republican Party, I'm going to be critical of my own party again. The Republican Party had a massive problem. It had nominated John McCain and it had nominated Mitt Romney, who were kind of not popular with the main base of the party for, real issues like climate change, issues like campaign finance reform. And, Mitt Romney was a big Wall Street guy, but he didn't really connect to like the business guy or the working man. And we got away from what the base of the party actually did care about illegal immigration. The base of the party didn't like the fact that we had all this crime because of it.
I mean, the whole thing about money. It's like, if you're a Republican, you're very happy to see Elon Musk pour all that money into the campaign. But, it's like there is a way that this money, that so much money denies the value of a person's vote.
Can I give you just a pushback on that?
Okay, go ahead.
Mitt Romney with all of his money and Elon Musk with all of his money.
They
weren't as effective as Trump was with a phone and a plane, which was expensive to buy, and spending $25 million in getting the presidency.
I get it, but he went. I think it wasn't Elon Musk who went around Pennsylvania or who? Or what,
in the last election.
Yeah, there was, and he was all over Wisconsin. When push comes to shove, it sure helps to have a lot of money.
I'd rather have it than not have it. I'm just not so sure that these rich guys who were trying to buy it, Trump figured it out, not by buying
I wasn't suggesting Trump bought it or that Romney did. It's basically this. It's sort of a rogue person. You've got Elon Musk with so much money they can go into these states.
And we've had it on our side for decades with the unions, and then and we benefit.
We used to have unions. Now unions
they
are
also had
Republican.
Michael Bloomberg, and he failed. And then you had the guy, the CEO of Starbucks.
We have them on our side, and Democrats really forget that. When we were going back and talking about that Wisconsin judicial election a couple months ago that Elon got involved in, that Democrat Soros got involved in that too, and so did unions.
Where is this guy Soros? Where is he?
He's very old.
I'm not saying
where is he? I don't even know where
he's
he is.
very old, and his son runs the show.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that we have to play by the same rules as the Republicans do when it comes to money.
There comes a point when so much money by one person is a problem, when you can effectuate the vote.
Can I tell you the amount of the wealthy person that actually did have an impact with his money? And that was Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook with the $400 million in 2020.
That's
now, that
example.
was an effective use of money, I think, in a way that was completely abhorrent to democracy. They got away with it. I don't know how, but money can be used, if it's used effectively, to have a massive impact on politics.
You and I are singing the same song.
But can I finish this point on Trump? Trump was thinking about running for president right when the Republican Party was at a low ebb, and we're like, oh my God, how can we keep this all together? We got to get more Hispanics. And Trump came in and took that autopsy and said, actually, it's already dead, and I'm going to have a whole new way. And he decided to work within the Republican Party. If Donald Trump had run as an independent, the Republican Party might be like the Tories in the UK, going away. I always say the Republican Party should write Donald Trump a thank you note. Thank God you ran inside our party, even though we were so mad at you. Most of the insiders fought him. He actually has given the Republican Party a whole new future because he took these issues that were important to the base of the party. He brought them squarely inside the Republican Party. No, you shouldn't always oppose a tariff. Yes, you should always oppose illegal immigration. Yes, it's okay to say that you love your country so much that you want to put it first in league of all the other countries. And America can't always be the sucker. We can't always pay all the bills, and we can't tell our working class that they got to pay all the expenses.
You know what my guess is why it's 4:31 this hasn't started? If you know President Trump, because I bet Erica is in the White House with him with his little kids, and knowing Donald Trump, he's getting a tour to those little kids of every nook and cranny in the White House. That's the way he is.
Yeah, that's right. He is that way. I will say that from a personal standpoint, we've had good moments and bad moments in my family, and he's just always there. He's just a steady, people don't view him as this way because he's a powerful person, but the Jews would say he's a mensch. He's a good friend. When you're having a low moment, he's a good friend. When you're having a good moment, he's a good friend. He's pretty steady with people.
I had Eric Trump on yesterday, and I was thinking after the interview, boy, those kids really love their father. Those Trump kids.
And they respect him, and they revere him, and they don't want him, they want his respect, and they're earning his respect. And it's very old-fashioned to me because the father always is dressed well, and he wants the kids to be dressed well. You know that he probably felt that way from the time they were a young age. He wants them to succeed. He wanted them to go to good schools. One of the first conversations I had with him when he was thinking about running for the president, he was talking about how he tells his kids, like, don't smoke, don't drink, don't do these things.
Yeah, but all parents say that, but his kids actually followed it.
Well, if you actually look at the sons and daughters of billionaires, it's kind of a sad story in a lot of cases. And the Trump kids are the opposite of that. Now, people can choose not to like them or like them, but you can't question the fact that, like, they get up in the morning and they go to work and they seem like well-functioning human beings.
They inherited quite a bit, as did Donald Trump. They inherited a lot.
But they
were born on first base, and that is great. And they've done great things with it.
But a lot of people who get born on third base fail and do get into drugs and do kind of have the next generation.
Hunter Biden was one of them. He suffered from addiction.
What happened to Hunter Biden?
I mean, Joe Biden.
He had a Yale law degree.
Joe Biden never had a drink in his life, and I don't think
Bo
Biden
was a hero in the family.
Yeah, and some people, there are family lineages, and that family struggled. An Irish Catholic family like that did struggle with addiction issues, and that was why Joe Biden probably never had a drink. But it did not.
I actually think that Hunter Biden was a huge part of Biden's problems. Because he loved his son so much.
I think, and this goes back to what we've been talking about, is sort of from getting to know Jill Biden for 3 years and being on the road with her, it was great because I got to ask her about all the people that she was too young, or she was so young when she started dating him, this senator. She didn't know enough to be impressed by all these people throwing her engagement parties at the Supreme Court, or Barbara Eagleton was like one of her mentors in the Senate Spouse Club. But she told me all these great stories, and you just didn't know who was a Democrat or a Republican. Her and Catherine Stevens were like best friends and were pregnant at the same time together in the early 80s. And it's completely different now. And the Bidens were not ready for, even though they claim they were, I saw it, they weren't ready to fight the way we fight in politics today, where there is not a lot of civility, where families are, unfortunately, and this was really hard for them, families are in play now, and that was hard for them. And I think the Republicans made a very big mistake with Hunter Biden, because now every chair of a committee, every candidate's spouse and their in-laws and their sons and daughters and how they make their income is all going to be fair game in the future.
The only thing
all of it is going to be fair game.
I'm older than you, but like there are a lot of Republican examples like Neil Bush and others where the sons got a lot of scrutiny.
Well, yeah, and by the way, Neil Bush cost the country $1 billion. Hunter Biden cost the American people nothing.
Well, that's not true, because the investigations of Hunter Biden cost millions of dollars.
For a first
The whole
time,
thing is they tried to personalize the SNL scandal on one son
Correct.
because he happened to have the Bush last name.
That's absolutely right. But he was also a vice president's son who was sitting on a board. He had no business being on.
Can I say nobody's going to agree with me on this at all? By the way, we're still waiting for.
I presume that's why you're letting us still talk.
No, I'm going to say something I don't think anybody is going to agree with. Is we had this horrible lawfare. What they did to the Trump family was terrible.
Disgusting.
Now we've got James Comey and Letitia James under indictment. And I mean, if I think the only way to end this lawfare, because if what's going to happen is next time Democrats get in power or get chairmen of these committees, they're going to do the same thing back.
Everybody's going to be fair game now because Hunter Biden was.
You know what I think should happen? I think Trump should pardon those two, even though whether they deserve to be prosecuted or whatever. If Trump pardoned Letitia James and James Comey, his party would be mad at him probably, but it would stop the lawfare, because the Democrats, if they win the House and the Senate, can't come back and do it after what happened. Trump gets his piece of flesh because they both have indictments.
So can I disagree with you?
Yeah, everybody does.
I mean, I would say before there's a conviction, that would kind of
let him suffer a little more.
We've got to morally show this. But that being said, I think it's very hard for someone with my politics to win in the courtrooms in Northern Virginia, in Maryland, D.C. So I don't think you get a I think it's very hard. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It's very hard to get a conviction.
Indictment.
No matter how.
That's easier.
No matter how guilty I think or know they are. In some cases, I know they're guilty.
That's all the more reason for that to happen, because, first of all, the indictment against James Comey, I don't care how guilty he is, if I've been in the courtroom, that's a tough indictment for the prosecution to prove under almost all circumstances.
So you agree with me?
I agree.
It'll be hard to get a conviction.
In any court. But the problem is that it'd be worse for Trump if Comey gets acquitted than if Trump acts big and says, I'm going to pardon him to stop all this lawfare. You tried to destroy my family.
I don't agree with you. I'll give it one more shot, Michael, and I'll let you get in. But I think the process is part of the punishment. And I think what they did, James Comey did some of my friends. What they did in spying on Americans.
What he did to Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart's a perfect example. No one talks about Martha Stewart.
I agree. I think that was maybe the beginning of a disgusting desire to misuse your powers. But the process has to, if we don't in this country put the people that tried to use their power to keep President Trump off the ballot, if they don't have to at least go through a painful process, we're going to be in a civil war.
Is it worth giving Democrats the opportunity to do it to the Republican Party when they take over? At some point,
they're going to do it no matter what we do.
If we're smart enough, I don't know if we're smart enough to do it. I hope that every opposition researcher is out there on 26 and 28 and going through with a fine-tooth comb how the kids and in-laws of politicians, Republicans, Democrats, whatever, Republicans made their money.
Good news for Republicans is we already go through that scrutiny. So I'd like to see them go through the scrutiny and they get to some stasis in the middle.
I mean, you tell me, you're a lawyer. Are you a lawyer?
Hell no.
Oh, okay. I mean, Hunter Biden, when his dad was a private citizen, President Trump asked his attorney general to look into Hunter Biden. They found a tax.
He didn't pay tax of millions of dollars.
That he paid back with interest and penalty the way millions of others do.
When he got caught.
A first-time gun offense of a gun he owned for 11 days. Never loaded.
And disposed of it at school.
The gun thing was stupid. The tax thing was serious.
So they went after him, and they chose to go after the son of a potential political threat. And then he went so far as to try to violate the law. And that's why he was impeached in the first place, by violating the impoundment law.
But then the Democrats come out, they open up the gates, and they go after Trump. They they try to destroy Eric, the kid. They
tried to destroy Hunter and Ashley.
So when is it going to stop?
I don't know. I would love to know.
Here we go.
Oh, I wanted to answer that.
Here's the president and Eric Kirk.